Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name's Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week we are continuing the Shock series. First we had System Shock, then we had System Shock 2, and now we're on to the spiritual successors, but made by a lot of the same people, I think, the Bioshock series. So, Mike, tell me more.
I will tell you more. First thing first, though, Tyler, you've played Bioshock 1 and 2,
I have.
Correct?
I played Bioshock 1 and 2 and Infinite.
Do you remember playing Bioshock 1 and 2?
Yes. I mean, if you're going to ask me some obscure trivia question, probably
welcome
not.
to the quiz. No, I'm just kidding. So this is actually that's kind of what happened to me. Is so I hadn't played him for a long time, and so I got him recently, and I'm playing him again. And boy, oh boy, was it a great idea. So we'll get into my thoughts at the end of each game, and but before that, we'll do the history. So here we go with Crime Facts for Bioshock 1, or just Bioshock if you are reading it correctly. Okay, this was developed by 2K Boston, which would become Irrational Games, and also 2K Australia. It was released on August 21st, 2007. Then it was remastered as part of the Bioshock collection in 2016. The game came out on Microsoft Windows, 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Mac OS X, and iOS port that is terrible. And
doesn't
Nintendo
exist anymore.
Switch.
They took it off the store, I think.
Yeah, because it's bad. So that's good. So no one can get duped here. Okay. Number of copies sold by March 2010. Bioshock had sold 4 million copies.
Wow.
It's pretty good, right? It is an immersive sim first-person shooter. We talked about immersive sims last episode. So if you're just joining us, we talk about that more. Actually, we talk about it at the very beginning of last episode that we did System Shock. So if you wanted to just listen to that beginning and then come back, welcome back for doing that. Okay, so awards, accolades, or groundbreaking achievements. It actually won a lot of awards, and Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Awards in 2008. It won the award for art direction, original music composition, sound design, and story development. So it won 4 awards there. At the 2007 BAFTA Awards, it won Best Game, Game Informer's 2007 Game of the Year, IGN's 2007 PC Game of the Year, Spike TV's 2007 Best Game of the Year, and XPlay 2007 Game of the Year. What is XPlay?
Still existed in 2007?
Yeah, what is XPlay? Is that Xbox themed or something?
No, that was the show that was on Tech TV and G4 with Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb. Are you unfamiliar with XPlay?
I'm unfamiliar with XPlay, and I am really impressed at how fast you spouted out those names just now. Let me tell you that much.
You've got a rabbit hole to go down, my friend. That was a cultural blip it was really kind of goofy and irreverent, but they also did really, really good reviews. It started. It started in probably in 2000 as extended play. What was GameSpot TV even before that? Gosh, wow. You're taking me back, man.
I didn't tell you about this. This came up on the Discord, and this is kind of, we probably shouldn't be talking about it on the show, but you know what? I like to keep a transparent administration for our listeners here, okay?
Sure.
One of my friends, good comedy friends, used to be a host of GameStop TV.
Oh, yeah.
And I talked to him about being on the podcast, and he was very interested in it. And he was there the day the Battletoads prank went down.
Wow.
So I was like, hey, you know what? Just kind of throw out a little future episode knowledge, or I guess teaser. So I just wanted to let you know that. That'd be kind of cool. And you just said that.
That'd be fun. If we do a history of video game stores.
Yeah, GameSpot TV was one too?
GameSpot TV, yeah. Because it was part of ZD TV, which is a whole network of tech and not really gaming. This was the gaming show on a broader tech network that then became Tech TV, and then they switched to Extended Play, and then later on they became XPlay. They got a little goofier. I didn't like it as much when they got a little goofier with it, but still highly respect Adam Sessler, Morgan Webb, all the people that were on that show. They are awesome.
Nice. Well, you know what? Bioshock 1 was their 2007 Game of the Year.
I thought they were long dead by then, though. All those people just died when... No, just kidding. They're all still alive, as far as I know. But I thought the show was dead. I thought the show was dead, though, by 2007. So that's surprising to me.
Hey, that's great. Well, you learn something new every day. So, average time to complete, according to howlongtobeat.com, is 12 hours for just the main story, or 22 hours if you want to be a completionist. I took my time, my sweet time with this game, and tried to, do all of the Big Daddy, Little Sister fights and get as much Atom as possible. And I was still under 12 hours, I think.
Wow.
So, yeah, it doesn't take very long. PC Metacritic score was a 96 out of 100. Xbox 360 is also 96. PS3 is 94, but that iOS, 68.
Oof. Big oof.
Big oof. All right, let's talk about the plot of Bioshock. So it starts. I'm trying to decide how much I want to go into spoilers territory on this podcast because I feel like this game is still relevant and actually was just released on Nintendo Switch very recently.
And it's really good. And I think you do miss out on a lot of it if you have the story spoiled.
So I'm just going to give you the basic breakdown. You play as Jack. It is 1960, and your airline flight. Like, you're not flying the plane. Like, you chartered a flight as a passenger on a passenger plane, and it crashes in the ocean, and you are the only survivor. But luckily for you, conveniently enough, there's a giant lighthouse that has a bathysphere that takes you down to the Art Deco futuristic underwater dystopian city of Rapture. And there is where our story starts. And you essentially go through Rapture, and you learn all about it, and you try to escape. And you meet friends and enemies along the way, and you have life experiences you'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. No, okay. I don't want to say more. There's so much to this game's story that makes it so good, and I don't want to spoil it for you. So if you were hoping to get a breakdown of the plot, well, then just go on the internet because it's there. But we're not going to do that today. So gameplay-wise, this is a first-person shooter where you use weapons and plasmids, which are essentially superpowers that shoot out of your hands. The plasmids let you do things like shoot lightning, hypnotize your enemies, or cover them in bees.
There are some fun ones, some goofy ones. I think they're all
pretty useless ones.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Maybe are there some useless ones?
Yeah, I feel like after a while, like the security hack one. Well, actually, that's not true because if you upgrade the security hack one, then you can spawn your own drones. So maybe it isn't as useless. I thought I spent like my first playthrough of this game when it came out thinking that Hypnotize was a terrible power. And then in Bioshock 2, they make Hypnotize into the best power in the game because if you upgrade it to level 3, you can make a Big Daddy fight for you.
Ooh.
Which is pretty nuts. It pretty much makes it so you don't have to fight. You could just have the Big Daddy fight, and then by the time that one dies, you can hypnotize the other Big Daddy into fighting. It's just like, it's so easy. Okay, so yeah, but bees is the funnest one. The insect swarm one is super fun. So you can use those powers. They cost Eve, which is the other bar of stuff you have to manage other than your health. So you have a health bar and an Eve bar. To upgrade those powers, you get Atom, which is this super secret power they get from the bottom of the sea that makes it so you can upgrade your plasmids. You get Atom by defeating Big Daddies, who are these scary old school looking diver guys with drills for hands. When you defeat them, their little sister that they were protecting is open. A little sister is just a scary, creepy girl, like a horror movie girl, essentially.
They grow Atom inside them, don't they?
Yeah, and they
like
call
that's
it light
how
in
they
their tummies.
do it, yeah.
It's weird. It's very weird. But you could either have the choice to harvest the little sister and kill them or rescue them. And I'm going to be truthful. I've never harvested a little sister. Call me a good person, okay? But I don't want to kill a child in a video game.
It's not worth it. You get more Atom to like upgrade your abilities, but I wouldn't say the game is hard enough to. Well, maybe I didn't play it on the hardest difficulty, so maybe if you play it on a harder difficulty, you should do it.
I don't think it's like warranted. Because there's also some times where if you could probably play the entire game just using the electroshock plasmid.
Yeah,
I think you really could. Minus, of course, having to go through certain areas where you'd have to use like the fire one to melt the ice or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think, well, you just mentioned it. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure you get just as much Atom, if not more Atom, rescuing the little sisters than you would if you harvested them straight away. So, yeah,
you get more in the moment. Like if you press A or A to save them, you will get some Atom. If you press B, you get like double the Atom, I think. So you get more in the moment. Maybe there's a thing at the end where you like get a bunch because they're all still alive or something. But you get the good ending if you harvest them all. So
if you're good and you
or if you don't harvest them, sorry.
Yeah, if you rescue them,
you get the good ending.
After like every 3, Bridget Tenenbaum pops on your audio log and is like, "Hey, yo, I left you a present," and it's like a teddy bear full of Atom. At the
so maybe it adds up in the end. Okay, well,
definitely worth rescuing, I think. But
if you harvested Little
We're just
sisters.
saying you're a monster. That's all
You're
we're
a
saying.
monster, but tell us why you did it.
Yeah, you're a monster, but email us at codeaccessorypodcast@gmail.com. Okay, so other things you can do in the game. This is my least favorite part of Bioshock, and it's the research camera. If you take pictures of enemies and then kill them, you get bonuses against those enemies. Definitely something worth doing, but I never get that far in it because it feels like work. And yeah. And in Bioshock 2, they do like a research camcorder instead. It's the same thing. I'm just not a fan of it. Vending machines are things you can go to. There's ammo machines and vending machines. You can hack them to lower their prices. And you also you'll need to use those. You actually need to spend money that you get in the game, which I think is kind of cool because a lot of games give you money and you don't need to spend it. Bioshock, you definitely need to spend it.
You have all these powers and you have all these guns and you can like kill big daddies and stuff, but you can't break a vending machine. You got to pay the money.
You got to hack it and then pay the money. Yeah.
You don't get anything for free.
You can't fight capitalism.
They should have built the whole place out of vending machines.
Yeah. Why isn't the whole plane made out of vending machines? Okay, so you can also hack the security systems of Rapture, and this is actually one of my favorite ways to defeat enemies because you just sit there and don't do anything. So you can hack rocket turrets, mini helicopter drones, or security cameras, and the hacking minigame is very fun in the beginning, and then you get so good at it that it's so boring. But it's like these series of pipes that you gotta adjust and move around to form a path to an exit. It's fine, they fix it in Bioshock 2, and I haven't played Bioshock 3 yet, which we'll get to at the end of this episode, but I don't know.
Have you never played it?
No, I've played Bioshock 3, but it's been so long since I played Infinite. I just don't remember if hacking's the same.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, so
I thought maybe you were going to get to experience Infinite for the first time, and I was very excited for you.
I have not played any of the DLC though, so that's exciting for me. The weapons all have alternative fire modes, which is fun. And I think this is also cool because you can kind of set traps with things in that way. It's kind of neat. You can do like proximity mines and all sorts of jazz like that. And it's just one of those things that makes it so you feel like you could do things in a number of different ways, which I think is the whole point of Bioshock. And it's fun. Let's talk about development. So Bioshock was actually a lot of different things before Ken Levine actually figured out what he wanted to do. And Ken Levine, by the way, used to work on System Shock, essentially, and he founded Irrational Games, or would found Irrational Games, because at this point it was still 2K Boston, and then it becomes Irrational Games during development. So the core gameplay mechanic of Bioshock has actually always existed from the beginning. That mechanic being 3 groups of forces: drones that would carry some sort of desirable resource, aka little sisters, protectors that would guard the drones, aka big daddies, and harvesters that would attempt to take their resources, also known as splicers in Bioshock. That's always been there, but the game has had multiple iterations. The first demo that came out was aboard a space station, and you were actually a cult deprogrammer named Carlos Cuello, and you were hired to rescue someone from a cult by like a US senator, and the game was just like super political. It was also still on a space station, and the team just wasn't feeling it, essentially, and they kind of went back to the drawing board. And then in 2004, 2K Games, which was a subsidiary of Take-Two Interactive, actually offered to publish the game. And they liked the idea of the drone protector harvester concept, but they wanted they wanted them to like expand on it. So what they did is, you know what you need when you don't know what to do with a video game? Nazis.
What do you need?
You need Nazis. So this iteration of Bioshock took place in an abandoned World War II era Nazi laboratory, and it was unearthed by 21st century scientists. But over the decades, with all the lab experiments going on, it like formed its own ecosystem, which is why it's called Bioshock.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So this is where it introduces plasmids and Eve and security systems and like talking to NPCs through like radios and not actually seeing them, or like the ghosts of deceased characters. Like that whole thing in Bioshock is where this all started. Was this weird World War II Nazi laboratory demo they made.
Wow.
So The final underwater city that we know and love as Rapture was thought up by Ken Levine. I don't know if it's Ken Levine or Levine. I'm going to say Levine.
I think it's Levine.
Okay. When he was walking through the Art Deco Rockefeller Center area in New York City, if you don't never been there, just Google Rockefeller Center and you'll look at it, and then you'll look at Rapture and you'll be like, oh, because they're very similar. So it's kind of neat because Rockefeller himself actually took control of building Rockefeller Center when all the investors dropped out and took it over. And Ken Levine was kind of took that idea and took it to the extreme with Andrew Ryan and building an underwater city in the 1940s. So that kind of is where it started. And then Levine also looked at dystopian and utopian authors and thinkers like Ayn Rand, Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, and took their ideas and kind of mashed them together into this thing. And he primarily used objectivism, which is the idea that man should be driven by selfishness and not altruism, which is from Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. And that is the entire point and basis of Andrew Ryan's thinking. That's the foundation of the antagonist, or one of the antagonists of Bioshock. So, because you're getting murdered by splicers too. Those are antagonists also. I never got a chance to talk to a splicer while it was trying to murder me about objectivism, but I don't know what they think. So, Levine also found out that while the idea of objectivism is kind of ludicrous to him, it is perfect for a villain, because you got, without this, we wouldn't have the no gods or kings, only man banner when you walk in to the lighthouse the first time. Everything about this game stems from figuring this out, and I love it. So just taking that idea to an extreme, essentially. So there was actually a lot of problems with management and the team during the process of Bioshock while reading about it. I was actually surprised it came out so well. There's a lot of things that either the management business people upstairs or people on the team disagreed with that they had to change. For example, the little sisters in the beginning of this game's development were not invulnerable, and the player would actually have to kill them to take the resources.
Dang.
Yeah, you would kill you would kill the little sister.
You had to kill them, basically.
Yeah, I think they said the original progression was you would kill the little sister, and then the big daddy would come out.
Oh.
Yeah, it was this
well,
weird...
he didn't do his job if you got to the little sister before the big daddy came out.
Pretty terrible bodyguard, if you ask me. So,
yeah.
The studio, I guess I wouldn't say studio heads, but I guess the publishing heads didn't like the idea of killing children. So
sure, I get that.
They came up with the choice, which was decided on by the player. And also the idea that your choice would have an effect on the endings was something that was decided not by Ken Levine and actually added very late into the process, which I thought was interesting. The plasmids angle came from the talks and breakthroughs at the time in the early 2000s about stem cell research. Remember when they talked about that a lot? They don't really talk about it anymore, but that was kind of a thing in the 2000s, and that's where the plasmids angle came from. This game was actually made in about 6 months of crunch time before launch.
That's not great.
We're talking 24/7 development, and it was originally going to not be that bad and be just a certain amount of crunch time, and then they added 3 more months onto it because Take-Two gave them more time to polish the game, which is good because it gave a lot of changes that were good, but it's bad for the developers because it was terrible.
I always feel bad when I hear a game, a highly anticipated game gets it got delayed by 3 months. Because on the one hand, it's oh, great, the game will probably be better. On the other hand, all those people who are looking forward to not crunching now have to crunch for 3 more months, and that feels awful.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. Just straight up bad. So, so doing some crunch time. At this point, also, they talked about how there was even people on the team, Paul Hellquist, who was the game's lead designer, was intentionally left out of big design meetings because he wouldn't get along with Ken Levine and Levine's ideas. So kind of interesting that they ended up making it work out in the end. The big changes to the game actually came from a playtest in January 2007 when they got some real negative reactions from playtesters. People actually didn't like the big complaints they got were players didn't know where to go because there was no sort of like system in place to guide you along a path. They didn't know why the game was like so dark, not like tone, but like actually like I can't see. Like, it
Which
was
doesn't
dark.
help when you don't know where to go, because now you can't even see where to go.
Exactly. And then also they thought the character of Atlas was not likable at all. And this is one of my favorite facts I have discovered is the team has since described the early version of Atlas as a quote, lecherous Colonel Sanders. Apparently he had like a southern accent and no one liked him. Kind of like a mint julepy style plantation drawl, I guess. That's how I put it. And so they decided to fix a lot of stuff. So they took it to heart and they used that extra 3 months to like brighten up and improve the lighting. They added a quest marker and they switched the accent to an Irish voice for Atlas because that made him sound more trustworthy to them.
Did they keep the same actor who can just do
know.
a Southern or an Irish accent, or did they switch actors?
I don't know. They didn't say that. I didn't look that up. I should have. If I was a good video game historian, I would have looked it up, but did I? No.
Nah.
So during the late stage playtest, they actually so this is like, we're talking the game is like 99% done right now. They noticed that players didn't care about Jack, the character you're playing as. Like no one cared. You're just dropped into this thing. No one cares about it. Why am I here? So this is why when you play Bioshock now, the cutscene, the game starts with you on a plane and you're like looking at a photo of your family and then the plane crashes. That whole thing was added at the very end of development because they wanted to ground you in a way. And they actually compare this to the TV show Lost.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
To like quickly establish like the character and the setting, just throw them in right before the plane crash. And that was kind of what they did. So I thought that was kind of cool. And that was a fun Lost fact. And I know you watched Lost. So
I did watch Lost, unfortunately.
I love bringing that up with you. In the end, Bioshock was released on August 21st, 2007, and the budget ended up being about $25 million. But it sold 4 million copies, so it made a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah,
it's
$60 a piece. Well,
Yeah,
even if they're $40 a piece.
And
yeah,
it was
you
by
did it right.
2010 it did that,
Yeah,
like
which was 10 years ago, before the remastered version even.
Yeah, the remastered version came out in 2016. Fun fact about the remastered version, too, is the lead game designer I was talking about, Paul Hellquist, was like added a lot of like placeholder messages into levels. And when they made the Bioshock Collector's Edition version of the game, they used an older patch version of Bioshock 1 to make the remaster before Paul Hellquist could remove some of his notes. So as a joke, another designer wrote, Paul Hellquist did not do his job on something, and it's in the game. What does it say? Paul Hellquist did not do this job. That's what Chris Klein, one of the game's lead programmers, put on like a messaging board in the game. So you can actually see that when you play Bioshock Remastered, if you know where to look. I'll let you Google it if you want to figure it out. I just thought that was really funny. So, I mean, this is like my 2 cents too. I love Bioshock 1 so much. I think it does a really good job of like bringing you into a place that you just get absorbed into. In fact, this game is best when your room is dark and you have headphones on, I would say.
I fully agree.
It's like total escapism. This game, and I mean, to a certain extent, Bioshock 2 is like that too, but I feel like with this one, you really feel it because you're like thrown in this place. You have no idea what's going on if you've never played it. And it's just fantastic. And the freedom to do what you want and the twists and turns in the story, it's just,
yeah,
it's perfect.
I love the twists. I don't want to spoil them, but yeah, the twists like say a lot about like video games too. It's kind of a meta commentary. At the risk of sounding, I am very smart, but I just really like the way it's hard to talk about it without like giving the twist away though. So
maybe we'll do a special spoilers podcast where we just say we're talking about spoilers before.
Yeah,
I put spoilers in all caps of our favorite video game spoilers. Video game plot spoilers. Oh, yeah,
the history of video game spoilers, and it's just us spoiling all our favorite games.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Bioshock 2. Bioshock 2 was created by 2K Marin, which is a studio in Southern California near San Francisco. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. It was released on February 9th, 2010 for Windows, both PlayStations, both Xboxes, Mac OS X. Well, I guess I can't say both now because we have a third generation. Okay, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Mac OS X, and Nintendo Switch. And the number of copies sold was 3 million copies by March 2010. That's right. This game sold less than Bioshock 1.
That was in a month. That was in a month, right? Because it came out in February. So it could have done even better, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. Sales figures wise, it probably did better. This game's great. It's still an immersive first-person shooter. It didn't really get any awards or accolades. It got an 88 out of 100 on Metacritic, and it takes 11 to 22 and a half hours to beat, according to howlongtobeat.com, depending on if you want to be a completionist. I think I hit 11 and a half hours beating the normal game, and then another 2 to 3 hours for Minerva's Den, which I'll talk about after this. There's also another DLC for this called the Protector Trials that I didn't really look into and I didn't really play, but you essentially are like, it's like a Big Daddy challenge, kind of like, can you protect the little sister? Can you do this? All that. It seemed fun. It just like, I'm like, I only really cared about the story content essentially. So once again, plot-wise, you're back in Rapture 10 years after the events of the original game in 1968. You play as Delta, who is an early model. Actually, that's not true. That's 8 years after the events of the original game, because the original game takes place in 1960. But 10 years, there is a flashback. The game starts with a flashback in 1958, where you are Delta and you are with your little sister named Eleanor, and then you essentially are like Jedi mind tricked into shooting yourself, and then you wake up 10 years later. Is how it works. So you are an early model Big Daddy, and you were killed by Sophia Lamb, who is the new evil ruler of Rapture. We'll get into her more in a bit. And you must find Eleanor, your little sister, and escape to the surface. Gameplay-wise, this is very similar to the first game. One of the big main difference is that you now have a plasmid on one hand and a weapon in the other, so you can like zap and shoot, which is cool. I think that's really neat. Also, the hacking minigame has been completely streamlined and is just a needle that goes back and forth across the screen, and you got to hit green or blue to continue. If you hit blue, you get bonuses, like bonus damage or a free item from a vending machine. If you hit white, you get shocked, and if you hit red, security is called. So, yeah, kind of fun. There are new weapons that include the rivet gun and the drill. The system of harvesting Adam also changed in Bioshock 2. Instead of just killing a Big Daddy and grabbing the little sister and like rescuing her or harvesting her, you actually pick her up and she comes with you, and you do like kind of a little mini escort mission. And for an escort mission in a video game, it is not that bad, because the little sisters I don't think can die, because that's like a part of the story. They're like super invulnerable, essentially. That's like described in like one of the audio logs in the second game, I think. It describes how the little sisters are essentially like bulletproof. So
they like they like justify it in the lore. I didn't know that. Yeah,
they do justify it in the lore. And I think it's actually, no, it's Bioshock 1, because it's with that Professor Suchong, who's like the person that designed the little sisters and the Big Daddies. It's in one of his audio logs.
Then what are we protecting them from? If they're bulletproof, what do they need a Big Daddy for?
I mean, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because apparently you can still needle them. I have no idea.
Yeah, but I guess you can still harvest Adam from them. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how it works. I'm not a little sister expert anyway. So, the cool thing about it, though, too, is if you die while doing one of these little escort missions and you go to a Vita chamber to get revived, which is something I didn't mention from the first game. If you die, you go to a Vita chamber, you're revived. Guess what?
Yeah.
No harm,
you don't
no foul.
Go back to a checkpoint. Yeah. You just respawn.
It's a lot like Borderlands in that way. Kind of. Yeah. So your little sister is there waiting for you, though, if you die in the Vita chamber or anything. So it's not like you have to go get her again, which is cool. There is a multiplayer mode to this game. In full disclosure, I never played it, mostly because I didn't think anyone would be on it at this point in 2021. The multiplayer is actually story-driven, though, which is something I didn't know, and actually takes place during the fall of Rapture. You are actually a citizen during the Civil War between 1959 and 1960. This is the fight between Sinclair, between Fontaine and Andrew Ryan. So it's like you're on one of their sides. You get a bunch of plasmids. You fight back and forth. It's just standard video game multiplayer. You build loadouts. A lot of stuff that you could probably thank Call of Duty for, honestly, in this multiplayer mode. There are modes like different, like Deathmatch, the Survival of the Fittest, Civil War, Capture the Sister, which is just like capture the flag. Turf War, where you just got to like King of the Hill style on the map. There are map locations. They are all based on locations from the first game, which is kind of neat. And as you progress, you get like tonics, weapons, plasmids. Like, so it is kind of like Call of Duty in a way.
It's got a whole progression system, which in 2010, you needed that if you're going to be a multiplayer game.
Yeah, you also get story-related audio diaries delivered to you. And also the menu for multiplayer, it looks like an apartment, like your apartment in Rapture.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's kind of neat. Anyway, so let's talk about development for Bioshock 2. Several of the ex-Bioshock 1 developers actually went to 2K Marin, which was a new San Francisco Bay Area studio that was a parent company. The parent company was Take-Two Interactive. So this is owned by Take-Two Interactive. People that left Irrational Games went here, started this company, and started to work on the sequel to Bioshock. The team started with 8 people in November 2007 and ended up being over 78 at peak development. The team decided they wanted to stay in Rapture, mostly because they thought there was just more to do, like more to say story-wise. If you didn't really know, at this point in time, Irrational Games is working on Bioshock Infinite. So that's why 2K Marin taken over for Bioshock 2. The
Treyarch of Bioshock development.
Yeah, they are the Treyarch of Bioshock development. That's actually a good way to put it. But I don't think they did a bad job though. They also did they wanted to make a really defined choice to fix things from the first game they thought were annoying. Like the first being the hacking system, that was kind of a no-brainer. Like we got to fix this. And so that pipe game was very boring after a while. They also decided to have the player follow around the little sisters, and that was actually meant on purpose for you to like care about them more. They wanted you to kind of like try to connect with this computer person, and actually care before you harvest or rescue them. Because they realized in the first game, like you just kind of kill the big daddy, you grab the little sister, and then it's just up to you. There's no like connection there, and they wanted to make that connection kind of happen. The big sister in the game, which are big sisters, they are new bad guys for you to fight that are like super athletic big daddies. Essentially, they like are skinnier. They got drill hands. They can do like crazy gymnastics. They go all over the place. They're scary. They're hard to fight. And originally, it was only going to be one big sister in the game that was just chasing you everywhere.
Oh,
isn't that cool?
Sounds scary.
Yeah, and they actually got rid of it though because they realized like it would chase you and it would be a part of a story. Like you can't kill it until it was designed to do so in the story, and they thought that would kind of take away from the immersive style of the game. Like you don't have the choice. You were just, oh, here comes little sister again. It's like your rival in Pokemon just showing up.
Like the SAX in Metroid Fusion.
Yeah,
just like shows up. It's just scary for a little while.
It's like, why are you so scary for a little while? And then you run away. So, in contrast to the first Bioshock's focus on like libertarianism and objectivism, and like Ayn Rand, Bioshock 2 is more focused on collectivist ideals in their villain. And this comes out in Sophia Lamb, who is like a psychologist brought to Rapture to like help people out by Andrew Ryan, who ends up betraying Andrew Ryan. Lamb's philosophies are more altruistic and are based on like Karl Marx and John Stuart Mill. Her motto is to make the world your family. So it's got these like, because this game is set in 1968, so it's kind of taking the hippie ideals, right, to like the extreme, like kind of more of the Manson-esque style hippie cult kind of thing going on. There's a professor named Ryan Lazardi who covers video game stuff, like themes and stuff. And he actually has a really good quote in here. He says, Bioshock 2 specifically asks players to question all sides of debates when extreme stances are taken, and asks players to weigh their decisions in an alternate and complex history. And I think what he means by this is like, because Andrew Ryan is still very much a presence in Bioshock 2. You read audio logs of his and you get some more history, like what happened like also after his death. And it's kind of like pulls at you a little bit, which is, I think is kind of neat. Like, cause you're like, oh yeah, Andrew Ryan was terrible. Like he wanted like people to be selfish and get everything you want, and like have no oversight over anything. But at the same time, the extreme on the other side is Sophia Lamb, who is a crazy cult lady. So like it's, I mean, to put it lightly, but I think it's really good and it's really well done. And I also I know some people really didn't like where Bioshock 2 went, but I think it was kind of fun. Also, like naming her Lamb as her last name is kind of beating the religious metaphor a little bit, but hey, whatever you got to do. So here are some cool fun facts about Bioshock 2 before we move on to Minerva's Den that I want to just get out. They don't really count as like development, but I didn't know where to put them, so they're just here. Okay, so there was originally going to be a subtitle for Bioshock 2. It was going to be called Bioshock 2 Sea of Dreams. And then due to a weird marketing kerfuffle is how I would describe it, 2K like dropped the subtitle out of the game's press release announcement, like right before they made the announcement. And then other people were like, wait, I thought we're calling it Sea of Dreams. And like, oh no, we still are calling it Sea of Dreams. And then they announced to the press a little while later, that's just what the trailer was called. Like there was just some weird communication things going on, when I kind of like that there was no subtitle. I think just Bioshock 2, you don't need it. It covers it.
I think more sequels should just drop the subtitle,
except for Metal Gear Solid, because they have the best ones.
Yeah, they do.
They really do. Okay, so fun marketing thing also that I had no idea about until I started doing research on this game after I played it. There was a viral website called There's Something in the Sea. It was somethinginthesea.com. It came out in April 2009, and it followed girls disappearing from coastline areas around the Atlantic.
Whoa.
And it would also talk about a mysterious red light that accompanies each kidnapping. And it had like creepy photos of like big sister footprints in the sand and like blurry photos of big sisters. And it followed a detective that would like be looking for his daughter who got kidnapped. It's like really cool.
Was it like, it wasn't explicitly Bioshock? Was it like sort of made to seem like it might be kind of real?
Yeah, it was made to be kind of real, but everyone knew it was Bioshock because the first photo they show you is the photo of the like doll with the baseball head that looks like a Big Daddy and like a drill arm made of like a spring. So if you knew Bioshock, you would know it was like Bioshock. But if you didn't, you might not, I just thought it was really cool. And if you want to know more about it, there's a bunch of YouTube videos on it and they're kind of long, they're like 30-minute long videos. I started watching one. And if you want to see the website, it didn't work for me because I think Flash is dead. Someone took Something in the Sea and put it onto like a fan wiki for Bioshock. And you can, I think, look at the site in its entirety there.
Oh, cool.
I think, yeah. But the somethinginthesea.com, that ended in 2012. They took the site down. So, but I just thought it was really, like, I like these fun little viral marketing stunts. I think it's cool. So, yeah. But that's Bioshock 2. I mean, there wasn't a lot to talk about with it. It's very similar to Bioshock 1, except you're a big daddy. I think it's really cool. I think it's really fun. I know a couple of people in our Discord said this was their favorite Bioshock game, which I think is neat. It really focuses more on like setting traps and like strategically placing yourself with this whole like escort mission thing than the older games did. And to some people, that's to a detriment. I didn't mind it. I thought it was fun, but it's not as much fun as Minerva's Den.
Ooh, tell me more.
So Minerva's Den is the DLC that came out for Bioshock 2. And this actually came out on August 31st, 2010. And it is cool because I feel like you don't get a lot of story DLCs that are completely separate from the main game. This is an entirely separate, different characters, different story taking place in Rapture. Obviously some things like overlap, like Sophia Lamb and Andrew Ryan and all that stuff. But this is fantastic. So in the plot, you play as Subject Sigma, who is another early Big Daddy that is guided by Charles Milton Porter, who is the main like head of computing in Rapture. And you go to Minerva's Den, which is the central computer core of Rapture that runs like all of the systems. And there, Porter wants you to reach his supercomputer, the Thinker, to retrieve its blueprints, and then he can recreate it on the surface. That's the whole story of the Minerva's Den. It takes about 3 to 5 hours to complete this game. Super fun. Your main antagonist is Reed Wall, who is the other person that helped design the Thinker with Charles Milton Porter. And your allies are once again, oh my gosh, how do I forget her name? Okay, I got to look it up. I was going off memory. I was trying to do it off memory, and I obviously cannot do it, and I feel ashamed. Okay, it's Bridget Tenenbaum. That's it.
Tenenbaum. Yeah.
It's the daughter of the Tenenbaum from Bioshock 1, I believe. And you're helping her escape, and she's helping you escape too after you get the computer parts and plans. And this twists and turns, and it's fun. So the gameplay is extremely similar to Bioshock 2, obviously, with the exception of a new weapon called the Ion Lance, which is just straight up a laser, which is awesome. So you get a laser gun.
That's cool.
There's a gravity well plasmid, which is really cool, which like pulls enemies together into like a vortex, and then they float around. You can shoot them while they're in the vortex. And there are also security robots that are armed with rockets and lasers instead of just the machine guns. And there are giant brute splicers. Brute splicers are in the second Bioshock also. They're just gigantic splicers. They're also a lot like the tanks in Left 4 Dead. They're almost exactly like the tanks in Left 4 Dead because they run around, pick things up, and throw them at you, and they charge you. That's exactly.
Does it play boss music when they're about to pop out?
It usually does play more intense music, yeah. They also have ice-throwing Houdini splicers, because there was Houdini splicers in the older games that would shoot fire, and now they're like, we got ice ones now, you know? Soon we'll have heart and wind and all the rest of the Planeteers. So, yeah, gameplay's pretty similar. Development, though, is really cool, because this is only a 10-person team total. That's how big Minerva's Den DLC crew was. It was led by Steve Gaynor, who had worked on like level design and audio logs for other Bioshock 2 content. Fun fact, Easter egg, if you go and collect the slugs on the ocean floor or in the jars in the game's levels, each one has a name, and those names are the people on the development team.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so the team was told to essentially reuse as many assets as possible when making this game. And a lot of people would look at that as a bad way, but Steve Gaynor actually looked at it as a good thing, because now they kind of could do more things creatively. Like, this wasn't a cash grab. They just were like given like you could do whatever you want. There was a lot more freedom, and that's why they decided to make this level. But the important thing I wanted to stress about it, like this game, is there's a connection to this game, potentially with System Shock, that we're going to see at some point. Ooh. I'm just going to read this verbatim from Wikipedia so I don't screw it up, because maybe if there's a diehard System Shock fan listening to this that wants to know, here we go. During Bioshock 2's development, the level designers suggested the possibility that technology from Rapture created a primitive artificial intelligence that would lead to the development of Shodan, an AI that appears as the enemy in the video game System Shock. When developing ideas for what would become Minerva's Den, Gaynor suggested merging the ideas, using a story about Rapture's computer core and a steampunk AI drawing from Shodan's multiple identities and impersonations. Gaynor wanted the content to fit both the world of Bioshock and the historical era in which it takes place. When the developers decided to focus on Rapture's computer technology, they based it on the early programming computing age spurred by the work during World War II, including the work of Alan Turing. And off note here, off this Wikipedia page, Alan Turing is definitely referenced by Charles Milton Porter in the game. So it's kind of a fun, like, computing history thing too. And the cryptographers at Bletchley Park. Gaynor reasoned that Rapture advanced using genetic technology, but the residents of Rapture explored other technologies' dead ends, including areas devoted to robotics and automation in Minerva's Den. So yeah, Minerva's Den is actually split into like 3 sections. There's like the computer part, automation, and then robotics. And so you get to explore all those and stuff too, which is pretty neat.
Nice.
But I was super pumped when I saw that, because I'm like, oh man, that would like link Bioshock World to System Shock World, which I think would be really neat. I do too. I like it a lot. one thing about this DLC too is it's short. But Gainer actually said that he liked this being a shorter story, you know, because you do so many long ones that it's kind of nice knowing you're going to go into something and kind of tell a short little vignette. And that's what this is, like 3 to 5 hours max, and you're done with this. Also, something that's really cool about the game is how it kind of is in direct conflict with the heart of Bioshock 1. And Steve Gaynor kind of explains this, because I'll try to paraphrase here, but you are building a city on the ideas of freedom and like everything. And a computer is like the antithesis of that. Like, you know what I mean? Like there is no predestination, like, or free will, like everything is calculated. And
yeah,
so
computers just, even their randomness like has to be pulled from somewhere, right? Like there's really no such thing as true random when it comes to computers.
Yeah, it's not. And it's like, so that's one thing I thought that was like really, really cool about Minerva's Den, is how it's like, this is an area of Rapture that runs everything in Rapture, but it's against everything that Rapture stands for, because it's calculated and like really just like well organized and perfect. So not perfect, but you know what I mean? So one thing that was done in this is they kind of wanted to up the survival horror feel of Minerva's Den. And you really do feel this, because what they did, which I thought was a really cool way of doing it, you get the equipment in a different order than you do in Bioshock 2 or Bioshock 1. Like, you don't start with like the Electrobolt plasmid, which actually you realize how much easier that makes your life, is the Electrobolt plasmid.
Oh yeah.
Because you can like stun enemies. You instead start with the security bot one, and then hypnotize, and then you get different guns along the way, but you don't start with like the shotgun or like really, really good guns. It takes a while to get to those. And I thought that was cool, because it also made you think differently in this game, which is something they were going for. Like, you were definitely like, you're in this area that's all devoted to technology, so you need to use that technology to survive. So it's a lot more hacking focused than the other games were. And it's a lot more like technology, like drone focused. Like, you have your own drones around you a lot if you can get them, and it's pretty fun. So here are my opinions on Minerva's Den. While I think that this game, like, I agree that it's not as good as Bioshock 1 or Bioshock Infinite. But it's like the worst of 3 amazing games is still an amazing game, is how I look at it. And Minerva's Den is easily one of the best short video game experiences I have ever played, like including those like little indie games I've played that have been like quick too, like Firewatch and those kind of which I love. But Minerva's Den is great. And I would even say, like, I would tell people like, hey, you know what? If you have a choice between Bioshock 2 and playing Minerva's Den, I would tell them to play Minerva's Den, actually.
Yeah. Because it's a separate story. You don't really need to know.
Yeah, you don't need to know. 2. It's low commitment. If you don't know if you're going to like Bioshock, well, play Minerva's Den, because if you don't like it, but you still want to finish the story, it's only like 3 hours, you know? So I think, because that's the other thing about this game too, is once you get, like I said, hypnotize, it's broken. Okay, this is the Mike Pro tip for playing Bioshock. You could probably play this whole game using hypnotize and just enraging people and then hypnotizing them afterward. It's like, you can play the whole game that way. But so I really, 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 really like Minerva's Den. And I really liked Bioshock 2, and I love Bioshock 1, and I'm excited to play Infinite. I haven't played Infinite yet because I don't have the time to put into it. And also, like, when I was playing these games, I was trying to think about how I'd do this episode at the same time, you know? And I like that this was all fresh in my mind when I did the gameplay section and everything for this is way shorter than it normally is for our other games, because I have it on the dome, you know, I remember, and I like that. So I'm going to probably wait for a bit until we go into like Bioshock Infinite, until I have time to play the game. But in closing, I think this is going to be hokey. You ready for it? You ready for the hokiness?
I'm ready for it. Yep.
Okay. In Bioshock 2, like, you're Delta and you're like a monster, you know, because you're a big daddy. Okay.
Yeah. You're like one of the bad guys from the first game.
Yeah. But what you really want is a sense of humanity and like taking care of Eleanor is your sense of humanity. So I would argue that Bioshock 2 has more heart than Bioshock 1. And in the end, isn't that all that matters? Cue the more you know theme, Tyler. Cue the rainbow theme.
The more you know.
Thank you. Yeah. So Tyler, what you been playing?
Let's see. I've been playing. I finished Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered for the second time. That's the second time I've played through the remastered version specifically. So probably the fourth time I've played through all of Call of Duty 4. It's a great game. And I got started on the Modern Warfare 2 remastered campaign, which I have not played the remastered version of. So pretty excited to see the differences there. I started up Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, the 3DS remake. That I don't know if I'm going to keep going on it. It's like a fun JRPG. It's really, really basic, and I don't know if it's going to be able to hold my attention, especially because I also just started up last night the demo for Bravely Default 2, which comes out in a couple of weeks, I think, or the end of next month. And demo...
What is Bravely Default? I don't think I played the first Bravely Default.
Bravely Default, there are two on the 3DS. So there's Bravely Default and there was Bravely Second End Layer, which I didn't really play, but they're Japanese RPG style, like turn-based. They're basically Final Fantasy games, like old school Final Fantasy games. Like if you slapped a Final Fantasy name on it and changed literally nothing else, it would make sense because you have all the same magic spells. They have a job system that uses all the same jobs. It's made by Square Enix, so it's not like a weird copyright infringement problem. Yeah, it's still made by Square. But I think they probably wanted to keep making that style of RPG and realized that their Final Fantasy brand had like kind of gone in a different direction. So this is for like if you're one of those folks who's like, after about Final Fantasy 10 or 12 when they really started going in this different direction from what I really enjoyed before that. And that's why you've like stopped playing Final Fantasy games. Check out the Bravely Default series because it's like if this is like a branching path in Final Fantasy, and this is the more traditional path. Anyway, Bravely Default 2 has no connections to the first game story-wise or anything like that, so it's a great place to jump in, which is why I'm picking it up. And the demo, I think, is like the first... It has all of the story of the first chapter built into it, which is actually really long, I think. But you're on like a 5-hour time limit. So it's like basically how far can you get into this chapter in 5 hours? And I think that probably... in the final game, the chapter will be like 10 or 15 hours long just for that chapter. So you're not really getting that far into the game, but it is enough to know if you like it or not. And so I've been really enjoying that and just like messing around with the different jobs. And I'm on a boss right now that I've died a couple times on, and I'm trying to figure out how to beat him. And it's really given me old school Final Fantasy vibes. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
That's awesome. What's that on? Is it on PC?
It's on Switch.
Oh, nice. Even better.
Yeah. So other than that, I hope they put it out on PC. But other than that, just World of Warcraft. We've been cranking away at the raid. We've got what three more bosses for you to beat before you've beaten all of the bosses.
We need to do Sludge Fist. And then we need to do the two final bosses. So the Sire is the last one, and then what's
the Stone Legion Generals also.
Oh, do any more of them involve dancing? Because it's my favorite.
No, the dancing fight is the best fight, though. I really like that
dance fight is the best fight. You have a dance battle in World of Warcraft. It's great.
Yeah, you do. It's very fun. I think that about covers everything I've been playing. I'm trying to look at like where all my games are. Like,
I got a new game.
Like, that's
I didn't tell you.
Yeah, what are you playing? What are you playing?
So I'm playing WoW with you. Taking a little break from Bioshock because I don't have the time to really focus on it, but... the best way to play a casual game to me is just playing a platforming Mario. And they had a sale.
Mm-hmm. They
had a sale on Mario Maker 2, and I bought it. And I am loving it. The story mode is super fun. I haven't started making my own levels yet. I'm really excited to, though, because I'm playing the story mode to get like cool ideas. Because there are some really cool levels that you play.
I didn't know it had a story mode. That makes me want to pick it up because I was always like, I don't really care about making levels.
But
story, if it has a cool story mode.
The story is like really basic. The story is that you build Peach's castle with like the construction crew, and then there's a character named Undo Dog, who is a two-dimensional, clippy-looking dog with a cone around its head that accidentally presses the undo button, and then you have to rebuild the castle again. That's how it opens. But the cool thing about it is the story mode. It's like you do jobs to build the castle for coins. So collecting coins actually matters. And the jobs is like 100 levels that are each a job that are all like show you like the cool things you can do with the mechanics in Mario Maker. So
Cool.
like there's a level where you like hop on one, you know, in Mario World where they had the skulls that would like turn into 4 skulls. It was kind of like a roller coaster that would go on wires. There's a super fast version of that in one of the levels. That's really fun. I played a level that you can't jump the whole time. You have to just use sprint and then let enemies that you sit on top of like carry you to certain platforms.
Oh, wow.
It's really fun. It's really cool. It's kind of different and I really enjoy it. So I am loving Mario Maker, but we have some emails and I got a cool message on the Discord to read. So what do we do first?
Okay.
Do we do the cool email or do we do the Discord thing?
Let's end on the cool Discord thing.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we got the second one of Burger Champ's queries first. Okay.
Yeah.
So we read the first one about what celebrity game, and we actually have a follow. Actually, we should do the follow-up on celebrity game first. So the celebrity game follow-up is from Matt in Japan. Matt says, "Hey, Mike and Tyler, Mike's dream game of a celebrity-sponsored farming game already exists. It's called Wiz Khalifa's Weed Farm, and it was released in April 2017 for Android and iOS. It's an idle clicker type game similar to Farmville, where you plant some weed, wait a few minutes or hours for it to grow, and then sell it and repeat the process again. The funniest thing I remember about this game is rather than having a typical OK button to close windows, it just says grow weed instead." Matt in Japan. Thank you, Matt. That's very funny.
Love it.
I love it. Do you want to read the second query question?
Yeah, so the second of Burger Champ's queries here. You die and find yourself in the afterlife. Before you can enjoy an eternity playing any game you want, you must first choose one console's library to play in its entirety, every game to completion. Would you choose your console based on the library you've always wanted to play but never got to, or the library with the highest number of good games to awful games? What console do you choose?
So this has been a divisive topic for Tyler and I.
We've been talking about it for weeks, literally for weeks.
We have different opinions on this. And Tyler, do you want to say your reasoning and then I'll do mine?
Yeah, so here's the console I pick. I pick the Virtual Boy because, as stated in the question here, after I get through playing a console, I get to enjoy an eternity of playing any game I want. I want to get to that point as quickly as possible. The Virtual Boy has only 22 released games worldwide. So like you burn through that pretty quickly. And there's some good games in there too. I'm sure there's some stinkers, but it's only 22 games. Nothing compared to like the thousands of games in the PlayStation 2 library or something like that. So that's why I'm going with that one. What do you think, Mike?
So I thought about that. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense to play one with short so you can just play whatever you want. But I love Nintendo 64 and I feel like why not just knock that off my list?
Sure.
First things first. So I think, and I looked up, Nintendo 64 has, according to Wikipedia, 393 games on the list.
That's pretty small, like for a mainline console. Like that's a pretty small number of games.
I can't even imagine trying to do it on like an Xbox or Xbox 360 or PlayStation. It would just be too many. But I mean, you got some bangers on here. You got Cruisin' USA.
Oh, yeah.
You got Carmageddon 64. Never played it. I'm just reading down here.
But you will.
Cyber Tiger. Who even knows what that is? Or Dance Dance Revolution Disney Dancing Museum. That's got to be a banger.
There was a DDR on 64? Wow.
Yeah, it's Disney Dancing Museum, though. I don't think it included the pad. There's no way it has a pad, right? Was there a plug-in? I don't think so.
I mean, it could have plugged into the
Dr.
the
Mario
port.
64? I didn't even know that was
Oh,
a thing.
yeah.
Duck Dodgers starring Daffy Duck. Okay, I'll stop reading the list. But you get it. Like, I think there would be some, because while there would be terrible ones on this list, there's going to be terrible ones. I think the cool ones will greatly outweigh the terrible ones. And because it's an older system, I feel like the time to beat on these games is going to be less. Like, you could not do this challenge on a modern console because so many games are like 70 plus hours to beat now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's so many.
Yeah.
Like, how many JRPGs are on like PlayStation 4? That would just take so long.
So many.
You got to play all the Persona games.
Oof.
That would take an
that's like
eternity
high
alone.
quality entertainment.
I
don't know, man. There are 22 games on the Virtual Boy. Even if every single one of them is garbage, I bet that's fewer garbage games than are on the N64.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, but I'm going to sit in it. I'm going to sit in my 64 bits of garbage and love every minute of it. All right. 64 Bits of Garbage is the name of my memoir. Okay. So we got this cool factoid from Grime Bucket, who I think we've said his name. It's Brett, right? We can say Brett. I think that's fine. But sure. He goes by Grime Bucket on Discord. So I'm just going to read this to you right now. Okay. This is really fun. So he says, in one of my junior high school music classes, the students were lamenting how they so often forget to hit the save button in some online programs. And so I told them that back in my day, we actually saved files to floppy disks and carried them around in our pockets. One student then commented on how crazy it is that old games used to fit onto a single floppy disk, and he then proceeded to do the math to figure out how many floppy disks it would take to save the entire game code of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 to a standard 3.5-inch floppy. Here's what he came up with. The entire game code, 175 gigabytes, would fit onto about 121,528 floppy disks, which would altogether weigh just over 5,000 pounds, or 2,282 kilograms for our non-American friends. Laid end to end, they would stretch 6.72 miles, or 10.8 kilometers, assuming it takes about 12 seconds to fully write all 1.44 megabytes to the disk, and adding roughly 5 seconds to pull out a disk and replace it with another, it would take about 24 days to write the entirety of the code.
Wow. I think 12 seconds is generous too. I think it's probably closer to 20 or 30 seconds, but maybe they measured it. Maybe I'm going off my brain here.
Well, Brett here says, feel free to check his math. I helped him with some of the calculations, so I can take the blame if anything is wrong. Also, I have some pretty cool students.
That is pretty cool.
That is very cool. And I just thought this was a nice thing to end on because it was like funny. And I can't even imagine 121,000 floppy disks. That's just so many.
Wow, that's so many floppy disks. Holy moly.
I did remember. I think I was on the tail end of that because I think I did have I actually tried... I think when I was building my computer in high school, I was like, don't we need a floppy disk drive? My friend was like, what are you talking about?
That's like nowadays if somebody's like, do I need a DVD drive? I'd be like, nope.
Yeah, I built my mom a computer using parts from my old computer when you actually helped me build a new PC, Tyler. And I actually pulled the disk drive out of my case and put it on her computer because I never use it and I know she will. That's what I did. So it's getting some use. But anyway, that's it. If you'd like to send us an email, we can read on an episode. You can email us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at @mecoletta. Tyler is at SneakerElf, ELPH. If you want to join our Discord, you can click on that pinned link on my Twitter page, or you can send us an email and I will send you a link. With that, I think that's the episode, right? Do you have anything else to say or announce or anything?
No,
Tyler?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, you want to say bye to everybody?
Yeah, goodbye, everybody.